After many years of caring for people, of being there for friends, of laying your life down for others, you feel like you've been shortchanged. You feel like you've given too much. You've sacrificed too much. And yet, there is no reciprocity. That's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, is to ensure that as empaths, we are thriving, we are healthy, and we don't deny ourselves. Because can you imagine not being able to live as yourself? Welcome to Mindset Talk with me, your host, Jabu Zwane. Thank you so much for tuning into Mindset Talk today. Once again, this podcast is about helping you to understand what are mindsets, how do mindsets form, what is the function of mindsets in our lives, and how can you best create the kind of mindsets that you need to build the life that you want. In this podcast, we're going to be changing your mind one thought at a time. But more than that, it is a place of healing, of restoration, of transformation, of growth, and also of thriving. I'm so excited that you've chosen to be with us again this morning. Just to remind me once again, if you are happy with what we've been talking about, please remember to subscribe. Please remember to press that notification bell, and so that you can be notified of future episodes. Once again, shout out to Arise Studios with Eob and the team. Thank you guys so much for making this happen. Much appreciated. Let's get right into it. The other time I had said that we're going to be speaking about insecure empaths. No, actually, we're going to speak about wounded pessimistic empaths. But unfortunately, we never got the time to do that because time just ran away from us. And today, I'm excited that we're going to be talking about that. Once again, what is an empath? Empaths are what we simply call people with good hearts, people that love other people, people who care that other people are well, they're healthy, they're cared for, they're served, they're catered for, they're seen, they're understood, they're accepted, they have a place of belonging. I mean, these are the type of people that you want to hang around, that will take off the shirt off their back on your behalf, the guys that will lend you the last bit of money so that you can go to that job interview. But unfortunately, there are some challenges with that in the end, you find that a lot of them end up having lives that are unhappy, end up a little bit contentious of this whole game of love, the whole game of relationships, and then in the end tend to isolate and not want to love people anymore, which is almost like a torture, because for an empath not to be connected with anybody, not to be with people, it is really tormenting. And the idea here, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, is to ensure that as empaths, we are thriving, we are healthy, and we don't deny ourselves. Because can you imagine not being able to live as yourself, not being able to love the way that you love, that you want to love, care and serve the way that you care, but you find yourself in these semantics and playing these games of, avoiding being hurt. I don't think it's quite fun. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book. And that's what we're going to be reading from today. And I'm going to be covering the last two types of empaths. The rest of them, if you want, you're going to be able to find them here in the book. But I think it's quite fun that we're reading and then we're able to comment on that. And so today we're going to be looking at as I said in the last episode, at the wounded pessimistic empath. Now, this is the type of person that after many years of caring for people, of being there for friends, of laying your life down for others, you feel like you've been shortchanged. You feel like you've given too much. You've sacrificed too much. And yet, there is no reciprocity. You feel ignored. Maybe in romantic relationships, as we did on the second episode, you got hurt. You didn't have people that gave back the kind of love that you gave back. And because you kept on being optimistic and hoping things are going to work out, sometimes you stood way too long in relationships that you should have completely stopped a long time ago. And by the time that you decide you're going to walk away, there's too much blood on the floor. There's too much pain. There's too much that you have lost. And hopefully, with this chapter, we will then be able to help you to recover, to help you to heal, to be restored, get to a place where you can start to grow and to thrive and to recover as an empath. All right. So in the book, this chapter of Wounded Pessimistic Empath is a type 10, and it's in 117. So I'm going to start off and read that out for you. And as I've said, in this book, what I normally start off with, I start off with a bit of a story. And the story is actually premised around a real person, somebody that I know very well, or a client, or an observation that I have made. The names are not really real because I'm trying to hide the identity. So I'm going to start off. We're starting off here with the story of patience. So patience's story is the aching, exhausted nurturer. Are you the aching, exhausted nurturer? What that basically means is that you still want to nurture. You still want to take care of people. You still want to be there for them. But man, loving people is a dangerous game. It's an exhausting game because not everybody returns what you've given to them. So, in her youth, Patience was a kind woman who radiated warmth and light. Her name suited her perfectly. She had been a mother not just to her own children, but to her entire community. Her home was always open as a refuge for nieces and nephews from struggling relatives, children from neighbors who had fallen on hard times, and even strangers who needed a warm meal. Patience married young, devoting herself to her husband and George. She cared for him with unwavering loyalty, managing their modest household with grace. While George worked long hours as a handyman, it was Patience who kept the family and their ever-growing village together. Her days were filled with endless labor, cooking, cleaning, teaching, and nurturing. She spent her youth tirelessly chasing after children, mending clothes into the night, and ensuring that every mouth was fed, even if it meant her going without any food herself. The sound of laughter once filled her home, children running and playing in the yard while she kept watch with a loving, watchful eye. Yet now, in her old age, the house is quiet. The laughter is gone. She sits in her armchair looking out the window with a small, aging home. Her knees ache with every movement. The arthritis, a constant reminder of decades that she spent bending, lifting, scrubbing for others. Her once strong hands, which had braided countless children and soothed scraped knees, now tremble slightly as she holds a cup of her tea. She thinks about all the children that she raised on her own, but many others would come through her home. Some had stayed for months, others for years. She had given them everything she could: shelter, food, discipline, and love. Many of them are now adults with families of their own, and yet they don't call. She can't remember the last time any of them visited. The ones who do reach out only seem to do so when they need something: a loan, advice, or help with their own children. Not one of them has ever asked how she's doing or if she needs anything. The story goes on to speak about how she almost regrets and asks herself, did she waste her life? And I'm going to close off the last part of the story of Patience by saying, the years of selfless giving have left Patience emotionally and physically drained. Her children, now grown, have busy lives of their own. They call occasionally, but their visits are infrequent. They don't see how lonely she is, sitting in a quiet home, surrounded by memories of a life spent caring for others. She doesn't blame her children, not entirely. She raised them to be independent, to stand on their own 2 feet, but she can't help but feel a sting of their absence. There are days when Patience feels bitterness creeping in, a resentment she doesn't want to acknowledge. She hates how cynical she's become, how mistrustful of people's intentions she has become. She wasn't always this way. She used to believe in the goodness of people, used to think that love and kindness will always be returned in kind. And now she isn't so sure. It may be so that I'm talking about patients who's advanced in age, but in my counseling, in my coaching, in talking to people, and one of the reasons why actually I decided to write this book is because there were so many people who had the same types of sentiment. I remember in December now, last year, December 2024, I was doing a live on TikTok. I ended up sitting there for about 4 hours. I just couldn't get off the live because the more that I spoke about empathy and how empathic people experience life, the more stories of pain came up. People were saying, I'm not going home anymore. I'm not going home this December because I know as soon as I step foot over there, I'm going to see so many things, so many needs, and I'm going to try to address those needs, but I'm going to end up being depleted because oftentimes there isn't even a thank you. If anything, there's some kind of entitlement to what I have. There's even people trying to dictate to me how I should use my money, how I should use my time, how many times I must be visiting. And if I do decide to do anything for myself, there are accusations of selfishness. There are accusations of being inconsiderate. And that's why I'm not going home, because when I go home, I feel suffocated. I feel suffocated. And then there's this. So for me then to preserve my peace, it is best for me not to go home. For those of you that are international listeners, when I'm saying going home as a South African, back in apartheid, there were these segregated areas where Black people would live. That's where our home is, whether it be villages or whether it be townships. And townships are maybe equivalent to what we call ghettos or compounds. Ghettos in the USA or compounds in Zambia. But that's where most Black people live. And so where we were raised, we call that home. I may have my own house, my own family right now in the city, in the suburbs. I don't refer to that as home. When I say home, I'm referring to where I come from, where I grew up. And so most people my age, maybe 10 years, 15 years younger, or a bit older, this is their story. Because part of what happened, of course, with apartheid was that it intentionally put Black people in impoverished areas, away from commercial activities, restricted our ability to take on certain careers. And as a result, you find that most of our homes are far away from towns and cities. So we got to travel back to go and visit our parents. And when we go back to those places, one of the things that we find a lot is poverty. We find high levels of unemployment. There are a lot of needs. There are a lot of psychosocial conditions, many of whom are very common and similar to the ones that I see when I travel to the USA. When you go to Baltimore, or you go to Brooklyn, or you go to Harlem, or go to even, I know when I went to Pennsylvania, a place called York. York is also one of those places that is poor in that way. Similar type of psychosocial conditions and similar type of complaints, by the way. And part of it is because, and I write a little bit about this in the book, is that I feel like as Africans, we really are the empathic people of the world. Our continent is the empathic continent that loves and cares for everybody else, while everybody comes and takes from us as a continent. They take our minerals, they take our talents, they take our skills, they take our knowledge. And because we are like typical empaths, we believe in the goodness of people. We believe it when somebody says we're going to collaborate and make things happen. We allow for that to happen. But in the end, you end up with absolutely nothing. And in the end, you end up being bitter, end up being unhappy. You end up being resentful. You see this a lot in our continent. You hear this a lot when you travel to the USA. You hear this a lot. I've not gone to Australia, but I know the Aboriginal people also have the same kind of, sort of way of thinking about being good as a person. And I want us to think about it. Now, let's look at what are some of the traits. How do you know that you are a wounded, pessimistic empath? You still are an empath to the core. You still love, you still care, you still want to serve, you still want to do all the good things that keep you alive, because your empathy is your life. It's not just a trait that you picked up somewhere, but it is the very essence of your being. All right? And here's some of the key traits. Number one, you're skeptical and guarded. It means this, that your past wounds have made you mistrustful of others' intentions. You require substantial evidence of authenticity before you lower your defenses. Like you're very, very weary when it comes to public spaces and getting to know new people. And you know that you are a wounded empathic, you are a wounded pessimistic empath when you are saying, I don't want friends in my old age. I am done with friends because people can be fake. People are exhausting. And you prefer to be by yourself. You've made your place look very, very nice. It's a very comfortable abode. You've got your tea, you've got your coffees, you've got whatever it is, your niceties to make sure that you're comfortable at home. But deep down, there's still a bit of sadness. There's still a sadness that says, I wish somebody would be here for me to celebrate this with, to enjoy this with. Whether that be a partner, whether that be a friend, whether that even be family members that you are no longer close to for the reasons that we've already explained. Secondly, when you are emotionally sensitive behind walls, while the empath may appear aloof or detached, they feel emotions intensely, but hide these sensitivities behind protective barriers. I can always pick up an empath simply by the language that they use. When over and over and over and over and over again, they'll be talking about cutting people off. The reason why you're saying it over and over and over again is because it's not something that you enjoy doing. That's why you constantly are convincing yourself that you gotta do it. Antipathic people will cut you off like you never existed. You know? And this is one of the reasons why empaths wanna cut people off. Because they've seen how the people that have taken advantage of them, like your parasitic personalities, the guys that come and leech on you, they suck you dry, and then once they've gotten whatever they want out of you, they leave and they get out of your life that they were never there. And then you're thinking, oh, how I wish I could be like that. And then you start singing this song back to yourself, except the drums are not beating in rhythm. The song doesn't sound as symphonic as it should because it doesn't line up very much with your personality. And we'll learn a little bit more about how do you then become healthier and what are the best ways that you as an empath can adopt. Okay, you are hyper aware of energy and motives. So wounded empaths possess a heightened ability to detect inconsistencies, dishonesty, or ulterior motives, often spotting red flags that others may miss. They are compassionate yet reserved, which means that their deep empathy drives their desire to help others, but they approach relationships cautiously to avoid being taken advantage of. And there's cynical optimism. They balance a hope for the best with a preparation for the worst, often navigating life with a guarded sense of optimism. Because especially if you're an optimistic empath that we spoke about on the first episode, hope is your lifeline. The idea that things will work out in the future is more than just positivity, but it is the very heartbeat of how you think. You deep down believe that things will work out in the future. People will change sometime. If situations were different and the circumstances were different and maybe there was more love, more caring, more positivity, perhaps a person would change. But unfortunately, this often neglects the reality that there are some people who benefit from not changing. There are some people who benefit from playing victim, from replaying their background and rehearsing their story of sadness, their story of struggle, their story of not being able to do certain things. Because every time they do that, they're able to solicit pity. They're able to get a lot out of you as an empath without having to do anything for it. All they have to do is throw a sad story at you. You open your wallet, you get in your car, you go through to them, you put petrol in their car, you give them clothes, because they know that as soon as they throw a sad story, your heart opens up. And then they're ready to go in and out as and when they please. And that's the thing with an optimistic empath is that it's like when you hear a sad story, the hero in you is called to attention. It's like one of those, what do you call it, trumpets, and then the hero in you is brought to life, and then you're coming to the rescue. Unfortunately, with antipathic personalities, especially with parasitic personalities, these are the people that leech and that will take advantage of you with their sad stories. Every single time that you respond positively to their manipulation, they feel more powerful. They don't think the way you do. They're not thinking, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I have been milking Jabu for so much money. In their minds, they're thinking, I know the only person the person that I can milk in the world is Jabu. Doesn't matter how much. You're thinking there must be some capacity where their conscience kicks in and they begin to feel for you the way you feel for them. But you don't understand that you think exactly the opposite way. When you give, they see that as a win. When you give, you see that as an investment, a seed that should help them to grow. And yet, that's not what happens. Okay, it's not all negative. What are some of the strengths of being a wounded, pessimistic empaths? Well, there's some of the lessons that, of course, you've learned about people because you are hyper alert and hyper aware. And these can be very good in terms of helping you to become wise in dealing with people in the future. And here's some of the strengths then, therefore, of having gone through what you've gone through, especially when you become quite intentional to learn the right lessons. If you don't learn the right lessons, you become, of course, like we've said, pessimistic. You lock yourself out in your room. You deny yourself the opportunity to live the way that you could actually live. And one of the worst things that empaths often go through, and I'm thinking about this because I know we might not have time to go through it because I'm not going to go through that type of personality, is that empaths actually end up not having friends. And how does that happen? And this part of the woundedness that comes along with it. I want you to think of it this way. A typical empath does not like to impose. They find value in helping others and being there for others. And so there's certain sensitivity that they have when it comes to asking for help from people, receiving help from people, and even appearing as though they're needy. That hero complex mindset often leads to them hiding their vulnerabilities, hiding the conditions that would actually draw other empaths to step in and help. So in other words, think of it this way. If you have 5 empaths in the room, the discussion is going to be, this is what we're doing to help people. This is what we're going to do to help people. Not one single one of them is going to say, this is what I need. So if you've got 5 empathic friends in one room, the likelihood of that friendship lasting is very minimal. You know why? Because they don't know how to need each other. They don't know how to be vulnerable with each other. They know they're very good at helping other people. But if one empathic friend sees the other empathic friend and says, my friend, are you okay? That friend is going to say, no, I'm fine. My friend, I saw you going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there anything that I can be able to do to help you? The empathic friend is going to say, no, I'm fine. And then there's a point, therefore, when you start to not need each other. Now, that is a huge problem. Why? Because an empath needs to be needed. They feel fulfilled when they are needed, when they are able to fulfill their needs. And that's one of the reasons why you find that so many empaths end up not with empathic friends, but with antipathic friends who constantly take advantage of them. Because, as I was saying last week with another episode on romantic relationships, empaths end up drawing and attracting, even romantically, some of these antipathic personalities because they can see in you that need to fulfill other people's needs, that need to serve others, and without requiring much in return. So you are a perfect victim. You are a perfect candidate, rather. Let me rather say. You eventually become a victim, but you actually become a perfect candidate for somebody who's looking to get a lot for free. You are a perfect candidate. But here's some of the strengths. Acute intuition. Acute intuition means that the wounded pessimistic empath's ability to sense hidden dynamics or ulterior motives is almost unmatched. This discernment allows them to identify and avoid toxic situations or relationships, making them valuable allies in protecting themselves and others. Secondly, empathy rooted in experience. Having endured emotional pain, they bring a unique depth of understanding and authenticity when connecting with others who are struggling. Their guidance is both comforting and empowering. Resilient survivors. Their past hardships have forged remarkable inner strength. They not only endure, but grow through adversity, becoming a beacon of resilience of others. I'm going to only just mention one more, which is wisdom born out of struggle. Wisdom born out of struggle. The ability to reflect on their experiences allows them to offer profound insights and advice, and this wisdom often inspires others on their own healing journeys. And of course, thankfully, one thing that most wounded, pessimistic empaths don't struggle with is boundaries. Because they've been hurt so much, they're very quick to draw the boundary. They're very quick to say no. But what are some of the challenges with these strengths? And I think it's so important for us to understand. This is how you became a wounded, pessimistic empath. These are some of the behaviors that you are now exhibiting because of what has happened to you. These are some of the strengths that you have learned and that are helping you to become a bit more healthy and resilient as an empath. However, there are some challenges that we would want to go through. Just to remind you once again, if you are enjoying what's being shared here, remember to subscribe, remember to hit that notification bell, and remember also to do the same for Arise Studios who are hosting this podcast. Shout out to you guys again. Thank you. Still going on here. Yeah, that's about it. Let me move on. So what are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges of being a wounded, optimistic empath? The number one challenge is fear of vulnerability. Fear of vulnerability, because you've been taken advantage of. You've shared some things with people and some things happened. What are some of the things that you have shared? Let's look at them. One of the things that you have shared is that your ideas. As I've been saying on these podcasts around empaths, that most empaths are multi-talented, they're highly skilled, they're very creative, and a lot of the things that they do, the skills they've got, they come so easily. It's like the genius level. How do you know something's a genius level? Something is a genius level when it's so easy for you to do. You actually don't understand why is everybody making a big fuss about it. Like somebody says, "This is amazing." You're like, "Yeah, but for you it's nothing." And it's hard for you to receive the compliment because it comes that easily. The challenge with that mindset is that you don't see your value as a result. People are saying to you, "Listen, you're an amazing artist. You're an amazing singer. You're an amazing accountant. You're an amazing lawyer," whatever it is, Jabu Zwane, you're an amazing speaker. Because for me, speaking is like the most natural thing that I ever do. I'm thinking, what's the big deal? Why do you want to pay me for that? That's like, it's effortless, right? Unfortunately, there's certain things that are not as harmless as that. Because of generosity, because of your friendship and people, you share your ideas too easily. You share, and then, how many times, let me show you some of the stories. You know how many times I have had an idea and I would bring people in the room to share the idea. But I end up being the one that is serving the idea while I've given everybody else important positions. And everything from A to Z, I came up with. The people that needed to be part of that, I came up with that. Resources that need to be put to that, I came up with it. But because I always want to make people feel important, feel cared for. I find myself not only serving my idea, but actually doing most of the work and still getting the least of the return. And this is one of the challenges. If you don't understand your value, those who do, you better hope to God that they've got a character, they've got the integrity, they are truthful enough and honest enough not to take advantage of you. But let me tell you something that you might already know. Not everybody has character. Not everybody's honest. Not everybody has your best interest of heart. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why you end up with seeing people running with your idea while you're sitting in the background crying about it. Does this make sense? Like, has this ever happened to you? You know, it's not just your idea, but it's also even your own place. An empath brings somebody into the place to come and stay with them. The person, you might even see them giving them the best room in the house. Whatever it is that an empath has most of the time, because of they don't want people to feel less, they would give other people the best of their part and leave the least for themselves. Okay, the other thing about that is overgeneralization. Now, because of you did not draw boundaries, because of you got difficulty expressing your needs, your wants, your preferences, people have assumed a lot about what you are comfortable with because you don't communicate it. And as I've said before, life is tough. People are looking for easy. Don't be the easy target, because if you are the easy target, you are going to get targeted. And oftentimes, yes, you have been targeted. And then because of you've been targeted, now you think that everybody's like that. And now, unfortunately, you don't open yourself up even to potentially good relationships with other empaths in the future. How do you do that? Your past experiences, your past betrayals may lead to you assuming that all relationships carry the risk of exploitation, causing them to unfairly judge others' intentions. You know, the all men are this, all women are that, these Amakos are this, Amazulu this, Basutu that, white people that, especially if you've suffered at the hands of those type of people. Then you got this overgeneralized idea of how people are, except it is just your personal experience. And yeah, there may be some truths around some of the general ideas, but there's also some truths around how you can protect yourself from those behaviors. And then isolation as defense mechanism. And the reason why you isolate yourself is because you are emotionally fatigued, emotionally exhausted. You're tired of carrying people in your system, carrying people in your mind and in your body, and it's exhausting. So if this is where you are, I need you to sit and to reflect a little bit on that, because hoping things away is not going to help. Hoping people should change, are going to change, is not going to help. And I want to say this message to you very loudly. People are not like you. People are not like you. Not everybody is like you. There are some who may have similar, but not everybody is like you. Stop insisting on dealing with people based on what you hope they are like. Stop insisting on dealing with people based on what you hope they are like. Instead, relate with people, understand them, and come to conclusions about who they are based on how they are, what they have exhibited, the behaviors they've exhibited, what they have said, the actions that they've committed for or against you, because that is more likely how they are. When you are constantly in this mindset of justifying how people and why people are mistreating you. Oh, but they were tired. Oh, but they didn't have this. Maybe they were not loved enough as a child. But I said something. I must have done something to provoke them. If I change my behavior, like, listen, people change because they want to change. And people behave the way they behave because they are. That's how they are. There is only so much that you can do to influence, and the word here is influence people's behavior. I mean, it's an illusion, and especially with people like me who are in the position that I am, where we are motivational speakers, where we are pastors, where we are teachers, we're on this podcast, and we get intoxicated with these comments of profound, oh, that's so insightful, oh, amazing, oh, you're talking to me. And that kind of feeds into your ego. And all of a sudden you're thinking, I'm changing people's lives. No, you're not changing anybody's life. People are changing because they're ready. Yes, of course, we don't want to stand in the way of somebody's change. That when somebody's ready to change, I want to ensure that I'm there to assist them, to be supportive, to help in the process. But what I don't want to do is to stand in the way and to be discouraging to them and to say negative things that makes their change, that to their process of change, grievous or more difficult. But people change when they're good to change or when they want. And by the way, here's a harsh reality that you may not want to know. Some people don't want to change and they will never change. Because change is way too difficult and they don't see enough value from changing as they do from remaining the same. And so they'll sit there and be the way that they are because it works for them. So don't be the one that is making it work for them. Other thing that you can do, let's talk about then the advice on how then do you help yourself? How do you protect yourself? And how do you help yourself now that you are aware that you are acting from a wound? And how do you know that you're acting from a wound? Think about it in a very simple way. When I was in the USA in 2020, I stuck there for COVID-19. I left here on March 10th, and I landed in the USA on March 11. And as soon as I landed 4 hours later, the current president, who was the president then, Donald Trump, shuts down the country. And then now I'm stuck in the States. I'm supposed to be going there for some training. Thankfully, I had friends. Shout out to Peter and to Faith and to the family, Mimi, Kawi, and Jono. I stayed with them there for those months. And one of the times we were playing tennis. I don't know why I decided to play tennis with these youngsters for the very first time. And then I heard a loud bang as I was going for a ball. Pah! And I dropped on my knee. I fell onto the ground. And I felt like my left foot has just been torn off my left leg. And I only turn around and realize, oh my goodness, my Achilles has just snapped. Like that part at the back of your knee that connects your knee or with your calf, it snapped. And I had to go to the hospital there, and then I put on a cast. But I didn't know how wounded I was. I didn't know how serious this injury was. And I actually took off the cast, I think 4-5 weeks after. I was supposed to keep it there for 12 weeks. I didn't. It was so irritating. I took it off. But I actually didn't realize that was the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake was I should have left the cast on, and I should have learned a little bit more about how bad the injury was. Instead, I didn't know, and I acted too quickly. And that is, for me, what I see a lot of times, especially with empaths. Like, the reason why we end up being so wounded, maybe just in general people, the reason why people end up being so terribly damaged and almost beyond repair, you move too quickly from one pain experience into the next. People jump from relationships quickly. This person betrays you after 3 years. Within 2 weeks, you are with another person. When did you have the time to heal? And then you see the pattern. Every single time you go through a breakup, you don't even wait 1 week, you jump into the next. And then that's why in the end, you're so cynical. You're so pessimistic. And then you're thinking everyone is like that. But it's not everyone, it's you, it's your pain, it's your wound. You now have a lens. You are now looking at life through the lenses of your wound. Like even today, because of what I did, because of how quickly I went back into activity, because I was very active back then, but I started too quickly. I started back into double skipping again. I started trying to run again. I started trying to get into my high exercise activity, and then I hurt myself again. And now the second injury has created such a trauma in my mind that I'm even afraid of running. When I go onto steps, I'm very careful. I navigate simple activities that used to be where I used to have such a low level of awareness, now with hyper awareness, hypersensitivity. When you are wounded, everything is potentially dangerous. Like, in that state of woundedness, everything is potentially dangerous. When you're wounded, sitting down is potentially dangerous. If you're not careful sitting down, it's potentially dangerous. When you open the door, it is potentially dangerous because it could hurt you. Simple activities that used to be so innocent now take on a different shape. They're now a potential weapon as opposed to what they really are. And this is how you know you're wounded, is that you see every relationship, every interaction. When people are talking about relationships, you always want to step in with your advice of, Mara, you must be careful because you know how these people are, because you know how that is. You're coming there with your wounded advice, your wounded frame advice. You need to heal. And this is how you're going to do it. Number one, it's important to begin to embrace your vulnerability gradually. Gradually. Don't throw yourself into new relationships like you've been doing. Don't keep yourself isolated for so long that you have been doing. There's something in there in between. Analyze, assess, don't ignore red flags. Take note of them. Watch out for consistent patterns of behavior that are potentially harmful. Connect the dots, but you can't just be running away at the first sign of everything. First sign of something going wrong, you're out of it. You see this a lot, and you see this a lot in social media. Run away at the first sign of a red flag. Sometimes it's not a red flag. It's just that you have red eyes because you are wounded. Sometimes your lenses are red because it's wound. It's the blood red. It's not a red flag. Here's a simple example. One of these counseling sessions, I'm sitting down with a couple, man and a woman. The man is complaining, frustrated about the fact that she never uses anything that I give her. If she's sick and I bring medicine to her, she doesn't take it. If she's in some kind of a vulnerable situation and I decide to do something for her, she won't take it. She won't take my advice, but then she'll come around and say, tell me the same thing that somebody told her. Either a friend has told her, or maybe she's seen it somewhere on social media. But when I tell her this thing, she doesn't take it. And I sit and I say to her, okay, is this true? She says, yes, it is true. And I say to you, why? She says, I don't know. I'm like, well, you got to sit down and think about it. Why? And she takes a moment, thinks about it, and she says, you know what? My other relationship, the person I was with was very controlling. They would say they've done things for me, they buy things pretending they're for me, but actually they were for them. And they would pretend that they like certain things for me, and they wish they wish well for me, while in the meantime, everything that they were doing for me was not for me, but it was for them. And I don't want to be in that situation again. And I said, okay, no problem. That makes a lot of sense. But now let's talk about it. When you are feeling sick, what do you want your partner then to do? Do you want them not to find out how you are, not to buy you medicine, not to attend to your needs? What do you want them to do? No, I want them to do that. Okay, great. If you want them to do that, then how do you want them to do it? Well, I want them to keep on doing what they're doing. Okay, that's a problem. You want them to keep on doing what they're doing, but you're seeing what they're doing as controlling. So what is it that you want them to do? And she's like, okay, I see what you mean. Go get healed. Because the problem is that if you don't get healed, you're going to see people who really genuinely care as, oh, they're fake. Oh, they're trying to get something from me. Because pain alters the way you think, alters the way you see things. And you unfortunately end up making it very difficult for others to love. You know, as a wounded, pessimistic empath, I'm gonna be very straight with you. You can be very frustrating to love because you frustrate love. You frustrate love because you are so you got used to frustrated love. Now, even when somebody comes to you with healthy love, you can frustrate it. And unfortunately, then that means that you will self-sabotage and destroy potentially good opportunities for you to be healed, to be restored, to be transformed, and to thrive again. So, embrace vulnerability gradually. Start by sharing small parts of yourself with trusted individuals. Allow vulnerability to be a gradual process rather than an all or nothing approach. No all or nothing approach. An affirmation you can say to yourself is that it's safe for me to trust those who have earned my faith. It's safe for me to trust those who have earned my faith. Number 2, practice self-compassion. I know I came on a little bit hard for you in this podcast, but let me try and be a little bit more compassionate. Hopefully in so doing, then it'll help you to be more compassionate. Recognize that your wounds are not your fault. Do not diminish your worth. Do not deny yourself those rich life experiences. Understand that every relationship is different and open yourself up to possibilities of new relationships. And I know even as I'm saying this sounds very scary. You're thinking, my goodness, you were doing well until now. I was in agreement with everything you were saying up until now. And part of the reason why you were in agreement with everything I was saying is because it'll help you to justify. In your mind, you kept on saying, yeah, it's okay for me to keep myself safe. Yeah, it's okay for me to put up with all. Yes, I'm right. I'm right. I was right the whole time. But now that you're being challenged, do you feel that feeling in your gut, in your heart, in your mind that almost wants to say, listen, no, you're wrong now. I don't want to go there. And that's understandable. That's normal. Be kind with yourself. I'm not going to condemn that. That's very valid. But you and I both know it's not going to help you to get what you truly desire in the end. And that is that safe, healthy, beautiful, fun, joy, generous relationship that you are looking for. You can do journaling. I'm not going to go into that. Number 2, focus on discernment rather than distrust. Use your intuition to identify trustworthy individuals, but allow for the possibility of positive relationships. Be careful of philosophies and ideologies that you've cultivated out of your pain. What are some of those statements that you've cultivated out of your pain? They make sense. And by the way, when you see them on social media, you're the first one to like, yeah. People are toxic. Yep. Battle Hilda. Yep. You know, in life, go wisha. And that's all different. Okay, maybe not that one. That one is a bit nice. Still, it's still true. But what are some of those toxic statements that you've embraced now? All men are easy. Yep. All women are gold diggers. Yep. And then your social media feed is constantly feeding according to your wound. The other thing I'd say that engage in healing practices, explore therapy, go for counseling if you can, creative outlets and spiritual practices to process past pain and to release emotional baggage, right? I like nature, like going out into nature. I like oils, doing those oils and then putting them in the diffuser, doing deep breaths. I like breathing exercises. I like rebalancing type of exercises where you try to align and to center yourself type of exercises. Because part of what we need to understand about emotional pain is that it causes trauma. It affects our physicality. It affects our digestion. It affects our minds. It affects your ability to concentrate. There's a reason why you're so more forgetful now. There's a reason why you're not sleeping as well. There's a reason why you're ruminating. There are thoughts playing themselves over and over in your mind. And you need to pay attention to those thoughts because those thoughts are connected to the trauma that's existing in your body, that is in your psychology. So if you just pay attention, you can pay attention to even simple things like dreams. I'm not going to go into dreams for now, but even dreams where you're feeling suffocating, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling overwhelmed, being chased by dogs, being chased by snakes. I know many people thinking, oh my goodness, I've got gatwasa, and then it's African spirituality. Listen, these dreams everybody's having all over the world, whether they're white, black, it doesn't matter. Because it's the subconscious mind sending subliminal messages that you are overwhelmed. I am yet to see somebody ultra-sealing that doesn't have trauma. If you're looking at some of those, anyway, maybe I'm touching a very controversial subject here, but I'm yet to see. Show me one that hasn't gone through trauma. Maybe I'm wrong. Moving on. Is build a support system. Seek out empathic and patient individuals who understand your struggles and provide a safe space for growth. All right. So here's the thing. This is what I've seen, and I want you maybe you've gone through this. Maybe you've gone through this. What I've seen is the following. I have seen wounded empaths have the most profound moment with another empath, maybe a healthy one, right? Where the person understands, and then they are there, and then the conversation is amazing, right? And the healthy person keeps on initiating to the wounded empath. But the wounded empath, because of the pessimism, there's a point where they stop responding to the messages. There's a point where they start becoming afraid of what this potentially could be, and then slowly pull away, not respond to messages, not answer the calls anymore, avoid getting in touch. They make plans to meet up, to have coffee. Every single time the wounded empath would not show up, or they have an excuse and they would cancel. And eventually, the other healthy empathic person that would have been an amazing friend for you gets exhausted, they get tired, and they back away. And guess what you say, you hypocrite? I was right. I was right. I knew they were fake anyway. Like, listen, there's a point where somebody else also gets tired of constantly being rejected, being pushed back. Okay, so final thoughts that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to close up the story with Patient's story, right? Let's go with that. It says, I'm going to say here, Patient's story is one of love given freely, only to be met with ingratitude and exploitation. That's true. And maybe that's what happened to you. Her journey reflects the profound pain of a wounded pessimistic empath, someone whose boundless empathy and generosity have been taken for granted, leaving her guarded and mistrustful in her later years. But even in her bitterness, there is resilience, patience leaning to honor her own needs, to protect her emotional and physical well-being, and to cherish the few relationships that bring her genuine joy. Her story reminds us of the importance of balance, of giving without losing oneself, of loving without allowing others to take advantage of you. For Patience, the journey toward healing may be slow, but it is a step toward reclaiming her sense of self and finding peace in the love that she still holds in her heart. Here's a reflective thought. Empathy forged in pain is not a burden. It's a gift of deep understanding. It allows us to connect, heal, and inspire in the ways that only those who walked through the fire can truly understand. I come across so many people that really feel like empathy is a curse. and it is a burden that they've got to get rid of. But the thing is that it's the very essence of who you are as a person. It is the very life of your love. It is the very manifestation of everything that makes you human. And to want to wish that away is to want to dismiss and to suppress very important parts of who you are. As with any injury that a person endures or gets inflicted on a person in life, we need to heal. And what wounded empaths need is healing so that positivity, optimism, hope can be restored back into how they view life. Otherwise, you remain enslaved to all the wrongs that people have done to you. And a part of it as well is that it's one of the reasons why also I have this other one, which I'm not going to go into now. One of the reasons why I have this book. In this book, I speak about self-forgiveness. And self-forgiveness is realizing that you didn't know what you now know. Maybe you were young at the time. You were naive. You were a bit ignorant. You rode on the euphoria of what things could potentially be. But now that you've become wiser, make sure that when you align your lessons, when you put them together to give you, to help you to make decisions, to guide you through life, that they don't lead you to more unhappiness, to more bitterness, to more skepticism, because you deserve more. You deserve better than that. And I'm praying for healing for you. I'm praying for better understanding of who you are as an empath so that you can lead yourself better, so that you can manage yourself better, so that you can make wiser, better, healthy decisions so that you can be a healthy, thriving empath. My name is Jabu Zwane. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into Mindset Talk, where you're learning what are mindsets, how do they form, what is the function of mindsets in our lives, and how can you best create the types of mindsets that you need to build the life that you want. One more shout out to Arouse Studios for giving us this platform. May God continue to reach and bless you guys. Don't forget, hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, give me your comments and let me know what spoke to you the most. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep going. Thank you so much. See you on the next podcast. Cheers.